You alright guys, welcome. We are at the Action Duchenne Conference 2017. My name's Peter and I'm joined by Jon Powton. Jon, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm 43, I have Becker, muscular dystrophy, and I live in Burnley. And I was diagnosed at 17, I was at the same day as my brother, who's 14 years older than me, so we had a joint diagnosis. And I'm now, after an engineering career, I'm now a foster carer for two small children.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's something we've spoken about before. And I don't know, do you want to tell us about how you got into foster care?
Sure. I actually became a foster carer through lack of other opportunities in some respects. I worked in heavy engineering, I was trained as an engineer. And I used to make ships, I used to be a ship builder, and I was a plater by trade. And as my condition progressed, it became increasingly difficult. But I didn't come out of engineering due to my condition. I was actually made redundant.
I see.
So when I tried to get back into employment in that field, the sound of doors repetitively slamming behind me as soon as I mentioned disability became an overpowering thing. So I was unemployed for a little while, and then me and my wife went into property development and various other things, and kind of did that until the crash really that happened. And then I sat around for a while complaining about being bored and not having, finding it difficult to get into employment and not really knowing what to do next. And through an argument, actually, being told off is better than an argument, because I was actually being told off about stop mourning, go and find something to do. So my wife said, "You've always wanted to work with children.
Yeah.
Why don't you go and see if you can do that?" Not really with any true expectation I'd be allowed. And part of the process, there were some obstacles to it. There were some various different companies and various different agencies that weren't particularly engaging.
Yeah.
Although that were kind of expected.
And because of your disability? Yeah.
Partly because of my disability.
Or maybe not openly about it, but...
Well, one of them was open about it and said, "Unfortunately, we don't think you'd manage."
I see.
Well, okay. I mean, it's opinions.
Yeah.
But I did find an avenue into it through a different agency who were magnificent and engaged with me on a level where I don't do what I do on my disability, I do it on my abilities. Funnily enough, most of my abilities that are relevant, most of the skills I have for looking after children and fostering and looking after children that have suffered abuse and neglect, came from the empathy I gained through the introspection into myself through my disability and my ability to overcome challenges and obstacles and find my way through and around and sort of navigating the course of life, I guess. I got an insight into overcoming adversity personally through, just trying to get through the day and trying to live a life and be a real normal kind of person. But gain the skills through all that to be able to engage with these children that have really severe attachment and bonding issues and have suffered terrible abuse and neglect and awful things, and because I can kind of understand the challenges that they face and the adversity that they face and their emotional limitations at that point. So in some ways, having this condition has given me things, it's given me skills I wouldn't have had if I didn't have it. Obviously I'd swap it, if I could swap it for not having it, I would, but I don't know if I'd be the person I am if I hadn't have walked the path I've walked. I think I'd have been somebody possibly lesser than I feel I am now. So as much as it's taken things away from me and limited my life choices in some respects, I'm not defined by it in any way, but it's given me a perspective that I wouldn't have had. That's unique to having the trials and tribulations of having this condition.
Did you ever expect that, when you were diagnosed or kind of early on in your diagnosis, was that I mean, that I imagine might not have been a path that you've expected, or that you've been able to get positive.
No, certainly not. I mean, I was 17. It was just after my 17th birthday when I was diagnosed. And my plan was I was actually going to go in the RAF.
Wow.
And my diagnosis kind of scuppered my dreams, really. And funnily enough, I actually went to live away from home at 17 because I then changed path and went and did an engineering apprenticeship. So I went to live away from home in Middlesbrough for 5 years. So not only was I sort of coping with that emotional turmoil, I was also 17, which is not the best age in the world to function, really. So I kind of had loads of things piled onto me all at once.
Yeah.
The pressure of the diagnosis, the pressure of my age, inherent chaos that is, and this education path that I walked, plus my dreams being shattered. So it was a terrible, traumatic kind of period for me. You know, sort of 10 years of anger and resentment and bitterness and fear and blame and all that other emotional stuff that you sort of throw at yourself and throw at other people.
Yeah.
So no, I would never in a million years have ever thought it was where I was going to end up. But I wouldn't change it because I love it, and it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done, and it inspires me. And the fact that I have a disability is not the point, because the disability doesn't stop me doing all the things I need to do with the kids. You know, all right, I can't run around the field and play football, but I can take them to football, and I can let them run around the field and play football, and I can facilitate everything they need. Even though I might not be able to participate as such, I can still be involved, I can be relevant, I can still be a cheerleader for it. But I can also do the other bit really well. Physically, my condition has always impacted me. But mentally, it's allowed me to educate myself. It's given me, it shifted the focus away from being, I don't use the phrase run of the mill, to being different. And by being different, I've gained empathy, and I've gained compassion, and I've gained intellect. It's made me more intelligent because I've had to be. I suppose maybe because I process information more, because obviously I have to think, is the floor going to move? Can I stand on that? Can I go up that step? Can I do? I do all these calculations in my head unconsciously, which means I must function at this accelerated rate all the time in my head. So I kind of found the propensity to learn. I can learn really well, and because I can educate myself, I can then use that aspect of my personality to help the children thrive in school and do and achieve what they want to achieve. But it doesn't limit me. It just makes it a bit more awkward.
Yeah, now I can imagine. And in terms of the children themselves, do they kind of notice your disability?
They know. They're fully engaged. The fact that I have a disability.
Are the reactions quite wide-ranging, or
no? They're the most accepting, open-minded people I've ever met. For example, I recently, me and my wife took the children to Disneyland. I went to Florida on holiday, took the children to Disneyland, and walking around, it was getting hard work. So I was walking around, but it was getting difficult, and my legs were hurting. So my wife got a wheelchair, and now this is the first time I've ever sat in a wheelchair. So I was kind of mixed about it. It was mixed. Am I comfortable with this? Is this really is this a milestone kind of moment? Anyway, putting that aside, I've got the youngest one, Joshua, who's 6. He's sat on my knee because he's lazy, he doesn't want to walk. So he's sat on my knee. Who's going, mind out of the way, disabled coming through, disabled coming through, at the top of his voice in the middle of Disneyland. Now, I suppose some people may have been perturbed by that. I could do nothing but laugh. Because you've got to go, well, what an attitude to have. He was only bothered about me. He was only bothered about my well-being and that I was okay. So, no, the kids are great with it, but then I don't make any pretense about it either. I don't try to do things I know I can't do. Because what's the point? And I don't you know, I don't bang on about it, but if they ask me a question about it, I'll tell them. You know, I engage with them. They're 6 and 8, and the questions they ask can sometimes be really relevant, and sometimes it can be nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, but they've questions to answer them. And in terms of what being a disabled person impacts on them, all it does to them, it makes them less. I think it makes them more accepting of people's differences, be it disability, be it race, be it whatever. Yeah. They don't judge like other kids tend to. You know, they tend to be less, because kids can be cruel. Yeah. You know, and these two aren't. Wonderful. They're really compassionate and they're really caring, and it's lovely to see that.
That's wonderful. And I guess what I always think is that it must be good for those kids to come into contact with disability. I mean, because it's something that I think links to what you were saying in terms of disabled people or people who have any form of disability are often forgotten about in terms of fostering whatever. And I guess that's kind of, we're missing that inclusion in society of when we think of what people can do.
If I give you an example that I sometimes relate to people, is the way I look at it is, in very simple number terms, there's approximately 11 million people with a disability in this country. At the moment, there's something like a shortage nationally of 10,000. I think it's 10,000 foster placements that we need. Now, if you break it down to 10,000 into 11 million, it works out at something like 0.01%. So it's a tenth of 1%. If a tenth of 1% of those 11 million people became foster carers, there would be a national crisis eradicated. Yeah. There would be 15,000 children who would have secure, loving, safe, proactive homes that would take all of that chaos out of their lives. That means you could remove 99.9% of disabled people out of that picture through severity of disability or lack of interest in doing it, or, you know, whatever, out of it, and still solve this crisis. Yeah. And loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of disabled people have their own children, they have their own jobs, they have their own careers, they have all the inherent skills of anybody else. Exactly. But they have the added advantages of having coping mechanisms that they've learned. Yeah. And the thing about fostering is nobody would be a foster carer for the money. Because, to be quite honest, it's unrealistic. But you couldn't be a foster carer without it. Yeah. Because, you know, you're expected to give up your job, and you're expected to give up your home, and you're expected to give up this very important things in your life to do this. So you have to be, obviously, there is a financial reward to it. Yeah. And all the tax breaks and all the advantages that the government have put in place to encourage people into this. Disability, for me, has not been a barrier. And I've tried to relay that to people, that if this is something they have an interest in, that they could do it, and there are avenues to do it, and there are companies and there are agencies that are willing to engage with you to do it and put all the things in place for you to do it. Yeah. I think you've just sort of to resolve yourself to having the motivation to do it. Yeah, you know, absolutely. But their opportunities are there. Yeah. Even though they may not be advertised as such. Yeah. You know, and there are avenues to do it. I foster with an agency which is NFA, which is one of the biggest in the country, if not the biggest in the country, and they were magnificent with me. They were magnificent in the way I've been treated, in the way I've been given an absolute fair crack of the whip. Yeah. Not special privileges, not special treatment, just like anybody else. Yeah. And judged, gauged, trained, evaluated on the same basis of anybody else, irrelevant to my disability. Yeah. You know, and that's the important bit. Yeah, and I think that's key, isn't it? And I think, again, the way I see it with those children is that it's not just
you been given that one chance, it then will perpetuate because other people see, and then other people notice, and those children have grown up in or are growing up in a home where there's someone with a disability, and that to them is shown to be their normal.
That's their normal,
and so they don't have to be told about it. It's conscious, and anyone they come into contact will then see from there.
There's an inherent empathy that comes from it, isn't there? People that I grew up in a household with a disabled person. My grandfather had Becker and lived with my parents until his death in I think 1985. I think I was 11 at the time. So I grew up in a household with disability, and my mum had Crohn's disease, and my father had polio, and so we're an ill family. So I understand that environment, and the home I live in and the way we live is not disabled biased. It's not. It's children biased.
Yeah.
Like it should be. Yeah. And my disability always takes a backseat to everything that they do and everything that they want to be. But they grow up in that normal situation, and I notice other children who come into contact with a disabled person and feel either uncomfortable or they make fun of them, or they laugh, or they point and stare, or they sometimes that's just them not knowing how to deal with that situation and feeling uncomfortable through lack of exposure to it. Whereas my two will happily go and talk to anybody, and happily go and engage with anybody in any kind of situation, be them in a wheelchair, be them not in a wheelchair. Without second thought, and without sort of preamble, they'll just engage happily, and that's a great state of mind. That takes away that in later life for them.
Exactly.
They can pass that on, and they can spread that, and that's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then, they will treat people differently. They will treat people as equals, regardless of everything else. They treat people as people, not as a condition or a limitation. They just treat people like everybody else. Which is what we want.
Absolutely. So that's definitely clear. Like, people with disabilities can foster children. Yeah. And in terms of your kind of life experiences, is there anything kind of bits of advice that you'd give to people living with Duchenne or Becker muscular dystrophy?
I think, you see, the thing is, normally in the subject, in my day-to-day life, I'm the expert in the room. Okay, so when I come to something like this, where I'm really not the expert in the room, I'm the expert on me, not the expert on them. I spoke to a young man earlier who was 20, who was diagnosed at the same age as me, and he's going through the sort of the emotional barrage and stuff, the path you walk between reconciling it in yourself and accepting it, and that whole mire, really. And the advice I gave to him was he needs to take the camouflage off, because when he tries to hide it and pretend it's not real and not let people see it and understand it. And I said, take the camouflage off, because you can't hide it. You're only misleading yourself, because I've seen you walk across the room and I know there's something not right. Because I know. So if I can see it and go, there's something not right, everybody else can see it. What you need to do is take that off and go, you know what, this is what it is. I might not be able to do the stuff that you do, but this is the reason why. And people will engage with that. Absolutely. They'll engage with it more than shying away. And his fear was that people were going to judge him and people were going to treat him differently. And I said, people will treat you differently, but they won't treat you negatively differently. It'll be a positive experience, because they'll ask you questions and they'll want to try to understand. And they'll go, oh, you know what, okay, that makes sense now. And I think that my advice to anybody, if any of it's worth anything, is take the camouflage off. Be who you are without fear, and you are going to come across in life, you are going to come across challenges with people. You are going to come across bigotry. You are going to come across attitude, differences, and you're going to come across people that don't necessarily understand or want to understand or have any compassion. But that's normal for everyone. It's not disability bias. That's life. So don't try to live it in a different way.
Yeah.
You'll do things in a different way, but you'll get to the same point, and you can achieve the same things even though you might walk a different path.
Yeah.
So I think take the camouflage off is my advice. Be who you are without fear, and just walk through the normal process of your life without trying to pretend.
Yeah.
Because in the long run, you're just kidding yourself.
Absolutely. That breeds self-acceptance as well.
Yeah, and self-acceptance is the key to all of it.
Mm.
Because it's not about accepting your condition, it's about accepting yourself.
Yeah.
Because your condition's there no matter what you do, or what you say, or what walls you put up.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
So you might as well take all the walls down and just try to engage with everybody on an equal footing.
Yeah.
Because I've found that very few people, and I mean very few people, have ever negatively had anything to say about my condition. And I quite welcome people. I would rather people say to me, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
than not come and speak to me.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy now. And it's not an easy thing to do at 20. It certainly wasn't for me. But now, with the hindsight of experience, I can sort of go, I can talk about it. But I went through all that darkness, through all that stuff. And it's not easy, and it takes a long time. And sometimes you do want to go and sit in a corner and cry and feel sorry for yourself. But it doesn't get you anywhere in the long run.
Yeah.
What gets you somewhere is by dusting yourself off and facing these challenges a bit more head on.
Absolutely.
Without shyness and fear. You've got to throw yourself in at the deep end and swim.
Yeah. Wow. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jon.
You're welcome.
And thanks.
Pleasure to talk to you.